Hello and welcome back to Zapped to the Past and our coverage of the games that were reviewed in issue 5 of Zap 64. I am your host, Adrian Mills, and I am joined by my good friend and C64 admirer,
Graham Ruddings.
Last week we looked at our first batch of games from this issue and were amazed by the brilliance of Summer Games 2, more than appreciative of the sounds that Martin Galway got the SID chip to make in the great conversion of Hypersports, and bemused by the randomness of Monster Trivia. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, I suggest you go and do so. If you have, then let's get on with things. Graham, tell us what we have to look forward to in this episode.
We have crammed so much into this episode, it's a wonder it doesn't go pop. We've got every mum's favourite golfer, Nick Faldo, playing the Open. Is it the first great C64 golf game? We've got Frankie Goes to Hollywood, a concept game from an amazing band, or an amazing band in a concept game. We've got Merlin. We've also got Ian Botham and Graham Gooch having a cricket off. Can you believe that? Rescue on Fractalus. We've got our feature, Out on a Limb. There's so much going on. It's a wonder we can cram it all in.
Awesome. So, without further ado, let's get on with the games. And our first game, Nick Faldo plays the Open. Nick Faldo does play the Open. He likes to play the Open. As far as I'm aware, he was a big advocate of playing the Open.
He liked golf.
He did. He was a very, very famous golfer. He was Britain's famous golfer in the 80s. When he Sandy Lyle. Was that another one? Can't remember many others.
Sevi Ballesteros, was it?
He won English. He won British.
Well, I know that, but he's still a golfer.
Look, Brexit is Brexit.
Fair enough.
I don't recognise EU golfers.
Sadly, I think he's no longer with us anyway.
No, he's not. Got 80% in Zap. 80%.
Ow.
Strange, huh? We'll come to that. Let's have a talk. The first thing I just want to note is sort of thing is, so this is an early example of a golf game sort of thing. They would grow to have a certain look to them, which is the behind the golfer, the view that would be, pioneered by Leaderboard. This is pre-Leaderboard. So this is a top-down view. It's a very simplistic view. It's a one-player game. There's very, very, very rudimentary presentation. You have some options at the bottom, which you can flick between, selecting your different clubs. There's no title screen as far as I could make out. You're just in. There it was. Yep. The top of the screen is like an aerial view of your present location on the course. So down at the bottom, you had a series of options. So you could change your club. You could change the direction of where you wanted to hit it. You could press a button to get a more aerial view of the hole itself. And there was a wind. I can't remember, sort of thing. And then in the middle was a quite nicely animated caddy and Nick. I presume that's supposed to be Nick's. When you hit the ball, he would swing and hit it. But before you did any of this sort of thing, you were given 4 options to play. I can't help but think that the choice of these words was intentional, because your 4 options were in, out, round, hole.
I suspect they're probably very common golf terms, you'd be pleased to know.
I'm sure. Well, they are. You go in. I mean, the in is, I think, it's either the first. I think out is the first 9 holes. In is the back 9.
Yeah.
Around is
round of golf.
You go all full 18, and a hole is just you do 1 hole.
Yeah.
But to be fair, sort of thing, out comes first.
Yes, it does.
In as far as my understanding of golf, so to put these the other way around and write in, out, round, hole. I'm going to say it again because it keeps making me laugh. It made me chuckle at the time. I was sat here when I noticed it on the screen. I was like, in, out, round, hole. This is, yeah, absolutely. We like to be erudite and sophisticated about games sometimes, but sometimes the game just says in, out, round, hole.
Yes,
and you have to laugh at that.
It is also the TLDR of golf, to be fair. So
too long. Yeah, I guess it is.
You've got strokes in there as well. It could all get very down and dirty, couldn't it?
Yeah, strokes and birdies and all kinds of weird shit. It is what it is. You pick your direction, you pick your club, you hit the ball. There's none of the finesse or skill, should we say, that came in later golf games where you've got to get your slice or hook. You don't want to, all that sort of thing, which came later with the sort of the standard sort of three button approach. I think is what actually became like the standard golf interface, didn't it, for loads of games? Start your power, pick your direction, or pick your hook and slice. The 3-button hit. I think that was pretty much pioneered by Leaderboard. I don't remember something coming before that. We may find something
probably arcades. I would have thought somewhere.
This does away with that. I mean, I'm not doing away with it. I don't think they was doing it then. So this is simple. You pick your direction, and then you pick your power. There's a power bar as well, and then just press the hit button, and that's it. Really, your ball moves along. It's quite nicely smooth scrolling. top part of the screen, which the ball flies away and you hit it, and then you hit it again to get on the green, and then you put it, and you move on.
That's golf,
isn't it?
Yep, that's golf. Without the walking between holes. So
yeah, there are things that I do like about this. It's nice and simple. It's quick. It's quite arcadey in and of itself. I like the fact that you're given very minimalist information. You've got a selection of clubs, driver, 3-wood, 5-wood, some irons, a wedge, and a putter.
It's the standard. That's the exact standard range of golf clubs right there.
Because you're only allowed to take 14 clubs with you, I think, out on the golf course.
I wouldn't know the full details of the rules.
Yeah, that's why you can't take the whole range sort of thing. You've got to choose. So
yeah, you've got to choose your clubs.
When you hit it, in a lot of golf games sort of thing, it will tell you are now 200 yards to the hole. So you then pick your club based on that. This doesn't do that. It just doesn't tell you anything. You're here. Pick a club and try and work it out, which I quite like.
To be fair, that is actual golf.
Yeah,
it's not like you hit the ball and it goes, when it lands, it goes, you are now 55 meters from the hole, because you've got to guess.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I liked. That's what I liked about it. So there are some elements that I do like about this. If you like golf, there's probably worse versions of it than this. I don't know. What did you think? Did you find it all right?
I thought that as golf games go, it's all right. It's more of a kind of a dot move simulator, really. So move the dot from. There's weird quirks. I quite like the graphic dashboard, and the controls actually were pretty good. Sort of, it's point and click golf, which is kind of weird, but okay, yeah, it kind of works. There's just some really odd little details in it, so you aren't given much to go from, so you just got to figure stuff out, but doesn't take long, which is kind of a sign of a reasonably good game, I suppose. You either like golf or you don't. Golf is a game where you have to obviously hit the ball with as few strokes as possible in order to get it in the hole. That's the game. So that's what it does. There's not massive amounts of panache about it. It's okay looking. It does all the things that you would expect a golf game to do. Apart from the fact that when you hit the ball, when it does show you the overhead view, the overhead view, it goes from top to bottom when the ball flies, which kind of weirded me out, because I thought when I hit the ball it would go from bottom to top. I don't know why. So I thought the view of the map would be sort of bottom upwards. I don't know why. So it just seems weird that when you do it, it's the other way around. But that quirk aside, if you like golf, you're going to like it, right? I just thought it's just not very exciting, but it's a golf game. It just, you just kind of, we know because we've played the leaderboard and stuff, that it gets bettered by miles. But,
yes, it does.
But that said, you could have some fun playing this, I suppose, and just experimenting with different clubs and how far you could hit them and what the angle would do, and you've got all those little controls over that. It is all on one screen, so there's no real confusion, it'd be like it'd be like they could make a snooker game of the same thing and make a point and click snooker. It wouldn't necessarily be a bad game, because snooker's not a bad game. Like golf isn't a bad game if you like golf. Is this a good simulation of playing golf? Well, you can play around a golf and you can pick clubs and you can do all the stuff you would do. Is it presented in the most amazing, exciting possible way that golf games can be done? Not yet, but that comes a little bit later, so it's all right. It's not too bad. There's so many worse games out that you could be playing than this one, and it's got Nick Faldo was a big name at that point. He was quite a household name, more so than some of the other weird sports names that we've had with Peter Smith's squash and Bobby McGee's ping pong, and all that kind of thing. So
I think Nick Faldo was a bit of a housewife's favourite as well.
Yeah, exactly. So
He was a bit of a pin-up for golf, wasn't he?
Yeah, totally. And he was one of the all-time great golfers. So it's not like it's it'd be like nowadays. Of course, it'd probably be Tiger Woods plays the Open, or somebody. There might even be better golfers than him now. Tiger Woods is probably a bit old hat now. But that said, at the time, Nick Faldo was quite a big name, one that people recognise. So one of the sort of sports superstars of the time, a bit like Nigel Mansell's and the Damien Hills and Barry Sheens and other sort of famous people. There were quite famous sports stars coming out of Britain at the time, not just Olympic runners and stuff, but other sports. So it was a golf game, and it wasn't terrible, which is about as good a thing as you can say about it.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit there and slate it because it doesn't do anything wrong, does it? It's not like it's not like it's got really crazy golf logic. It doesn't have anything crazy about it. You hit the ball, and if you hit it the right direction and the right speed with the right power, you'll get it in the hole. Simple as. Yeah,
I think the only thing that I thought it lacked was a multiplayer. It could have done with so playing with your friends. I think would have been a bit better, maybe.
I think because you'd have all been playing as Nick Faldo though, which would have been a bit weird.
Multiple Nick Faldos. Yeah. I'm Faldo 1. You're Faldo 2.
So they'd have just had to add a plural to the name title, and so it'd be Nick Faldos play the Open. So the collection of Nick Faldos somehow materialises. It gets a bit sci-fi if you do that, but I can go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be multiple Faldos.
I could dig it. I could dig that.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't think it deserves 8%, but I think at the time it's certainly better than a couple of the sports games we're going to look at coming up.
Yeah, and is it 10% better than Rupert the Bear? Yeah, probably. If that's
but this is what I'm saying. Is it? Yeah. Is Rupert the Bear too high? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So this for me would be more of a midway game, 50s, 60s tops.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
It's not rubbish, but it's not like going to blow your socks off for amazing.
No, it's not. You just think sort of thing. 2 or 3 issues previously, this would have got a sizzler.
Yeah, true. And you know what? If you are into golf, you're never going to get any better at golf unless you actually use a real golf club. So this simulation is never going to help you with your short or long game. It's just going to confuse you about what clubs can hit what distance.
That's where I've gone wrong.
Leaderboard golf did for me for many years. There's me thinking that, I can hit a golf ball 190 yards with a 9 iron or a 1 iron. You really can't. You really can't.
Dead hard.
Yeah, unless you're Happy Gilmore, which you probably could, but there you go.
Yeah, probably. So Nick Faldo plays the Open. Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. We're not going to be down on it sort of thing, but there are bets coming, and probably if you've got to play a golf game on the C64, unless you're doing it historically, probably skip this one. Next up is another big hitter, and this game's another one. It's the issues of the gold medal, and it doesn't come more eclectically odd than Frankie Goes to Hollywood. This could have so easily been another one of them.
Yeah.
And to some degree, it maybe is, but it's not. It's really not. My first note is this shouldn't work. The mere idea is ridiculous. I mean, for those who don't know, we're probably all familiar with Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but Frankie Goes to Hollywood were a pretty big deal in the UK back in 1984, 85.
Yes,
I was way too young to really understand relax. I thought it was asking people to come around their house or something. That's why I was sort of under the impression that's what it meant. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was getting banned. So Relax, Relax was the song, was their first big single. It was banned off the radio. There's a big hoo-ha about them. And then they released a #1 album, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, with 2 Tribes and Power of Love. And Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, produced by...
Relax.
Who was it? Yeah, Relax on there, obviously.
Trevor Horn.
It was Trevor Horn, wasn't it? Buggles. Buggles is Trevor Horn,
Buggles,
this was a big event, a big musical event back in 84, 85. And so the thought, okay, so far so typical of mid-1980s weirdness sort of thing, big band coming out. And then who the hell would think, okay, well, let's make Frankie Goes to Hollywood into a game. Like I said, the mere idea is ridiculous. And yet it does. And yet they gave it somehow to probably the only people I would think who are working in games at this time that could turn it into something like what happened. They gave it to Denton Designs, who we spoke about last last issue, and turned it into something really, really special. I tell you describe it, because you describe, because I struggle to describe what Frankie Goes to Hollywood actually is.
Well, as a game, it's essentially...
See?
I hate to say it, but it is at its core, a puzzle game. Move around, pick things up, solve puzzles, and they do stuff. The collection part means you've got to basically become a full person, right? And so you're trapped in this as a boring old person in the mundane world. I think it's even called Mundane Land or something daft like that anyway. But and the idea is that you've got 4 factors to your personality. You need to build up by solving puzzles, collecting objects, participating in mini games to become a whole person. And when you do, you can finally join the Pleasure Dome. You can become part of that super elite and transcend. And so in Mundane Land, it's very much a world based around concepts of life, and I think really almost like life and TV, really. So it's a very much a reflection of the world around you is full of mundane stuff and rubbish, but to become this beautiful thing, you have to really dig around inside and participate in some really weird stuff. And when you do that, you can build yourself up to be more than you are. They transformed that concept into a game where you play a character who is you're see-through, but am I right in thinking that as you progress, you become less see-through? Is that you become less transparent?
I'm not sure on that. You're the Frankie character from their logo.
Yeah. So, and I think as you progress through the game and become more whole, you become more of a solid visual, I think. But either way, so you're wandering around the streets, you're going in and out of houses, picking up objects, searching things, looking for things. Some objects interact with other objects, and when they do, you gain some either one of the 4 elements, and they're represented with unusual graphics. So I think it's sperm, bullets, a crucifix, and I forget what the 4th one is. A heart, but essentially it's love, sex. I forget what the 4 corners.
It's love, sex, power, religion, and
Yeah,
war, religion.
War. When you build all those
yeah.
up to the maximum, you then obviously it becomes a full Frankie. And that is actually when you first start the game, that's the equation that you're presented with. So you see this sort of complex equation of what that actually means, and that's actually your instructions for the game. Collect all 4 of these, get the levels up to the top, because the levels do slowly diminish over the time of the game if you don't top them up. So you got a bit of a race against time. And then as you progress through the game, there's mini games in there, of which I think there's 6 mini games. Might be more than that, but I think there's a set amount. Each one's kind of themed to the Frankie Goes to Hollywood ethos. So something about 2 tribes, something about Pleasure Dome, something, and each one's got kind of a vibe. Some great music in amongst all of the game. And its look and feel is graphically quite interesting. It's such an unusual game. Like you say, it's a hard game to define by any one single element, because it's such a mishmash of different things. So it's part puzzle, part adventure, part collect 'em up, part music type game, really, in some ways. It's eclectic, and it's a bit of a, I think if anything could be described as kind of a concept game, this would be it. It's very much like a concept album in that respect, in that it's a game that you have to go in and you just have to let go, get into the game, and just participate in the world of that game, and forget about real game logic and the rules that apply to those things, and just go with the logic of this game. And if you do that, you're going to have a really good time with it, because it's good fun. Diving in and out of the houses, looking for stuff, solving mini puzzles, playing in some of the really crazy games, gradually trying to build up yourself to be a full person so that you can then transcend. And it's a tough old game as well. It's not very forgiving. I think it's a really great game. I just remember, even to this day, I remember loading it for the first time on the Relax version by Fred Gray, blasting out as it loaded and thinking, that is exceptionally good. By anyone's standards, it's a great version of Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And then all of the music in the game, it felt like I was quite a fan of Frankie Goes to Hollywood at the time. You had to buy into the world of Frankie Goes to Hollywood for it to make sense. But if you went with it, and it's all high concept stuff, really, if you went with it, and you went with that idea of it, just what Frankie Goes to Hollywood, what it kind of was as a brand and as a kind of an experience and as a thing and as an entity of whatever that might mean, then you were going to get a lot out of this game. And hence the reason I think that if there was ever a game that you could say it struck at the heart of something at the time, Frankie Goes to Hollywood was that game, because it captured a moment of time like Frankie Goes to Hollywood did themselves. Great title, great game, but hard. And it was never quite the same game twice, I have to say. It always went a bit different each time I played it. So, and that didn't change even when I replayed it. So
I think that's because some of I don't know if, because you pick up mundane objects like video cassettes, discs,
cats.
You use cats, milk, flak jackets, which is weird, and then you pick up power pills as well, which you can use to increase your stat. You wonder, I mean, the visual representation sort of changes from from the main chunk of the game sees you just wandering around like boring, like terraced council houses with all the mundanity of those sort of things. So just living room with ducks on the wall, very 80s, very 70s, very, almost 50s, 60s like almost. Kitchens, you wander around, you can go into gardens sometimes, and there's socks hanging up which you can pick up. And then when you use a video, maybe on the TV, this is what the really beauty of it is. Sort of Denton Designs brought their, design that they've been sort of perfected on Shadowfire, with these sort of windows popping in and out. And the way that screens don't just flick, they sort of grow out of windows. And the way it sort of changes the screens like that. And then the mini games you wouldn't just get transported. They would open up in the middle of the screen, and you had to walk around them and into them. Really clever stuff going on about how it would sort of transport you. And the mini games themselves were varied and eclectic. One had you as Reagan and Gorbachev spitting bullets against each other across the screen. Another one had you as a small devil, and you had to ride the clouds across like what was almost a sort of Botticelli, not Botticelli, but sort of Michelangelo-esque sort of painting type thing.
There was 9 mini games in total.
Yeah, there's another one where you've a really simple sort of almost breakout type thing bouncing around a thing, and you've got to sort of bounce it off yourself to hit a sort of spark at the top. There's another one where bombers are bombing sort of targets on a landscape, which I think is supposed to be Merseyside. I think
it's Raid over Merseyside. That level's called.
Yeah, Raid over Merseyside, and you're a sort of a target, and you've got to stop them from shooting them. There's all kinds of different stuff going on, and any of these mini games will lead you to increase your wholeness. There's a big maze section where you're wandering around trying to solve this maze. Halfway through, you find a dead body.
That's right, the murder mystery.
In one of the rooms. So then, as you're wandering around different rooms, as you go into different places, you'll get clues pop up, and you have to, don't go back to the body until you've got all the clues, and then you have to say who you think committed the crime. It's so odd and it's so unusual, but it works so well. It's so minimalist. One of the things we said about Shadowfire was that it was hard to understand exactly and it's like they looked at that and probably took that on board, and with this, things look like what they are. Video sets look like what they are. They go with the TV. Discs look like discs. Stuff looks like what it's supposed to be. There's a really, really nice level of visual design throughout it, both in the mundanity and in the more eclectic elements. It's a stunning game. It's a real evidence sort of thing. This could have been, like I said, another one of those. This could have been everyone's Frankie.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Quite easily. And one of the best things they do, there's no enemies. So you're not, like in something like Everyone's a Wally, you're just constantly bothered by enemies on screen. They did away with that. They're confident enough in their game design here, sort of thing, to allow you to wander the streets and the houses of Mundaneville, whatever it's called, and just explore at your own pace, at your own time, and discover and learn, and not force you and not threaten you and not put you in a sort of sense of panic. You're just playing. It just keeps going, and you just keep progressing. And it's a beautiful sort of trust in the player that the player will engage with that, and not force them to be like the mini games. You can die in, you can get hit and you die and you get booted out of them, but it just means you lose some stat. And it's a really beautiful and clever level of design. And like I said, it's really forward thinking in the way that they allow you, the player, to dictate your own pace through it. And it's wrapped up with lovely visuals and, as you've already said, great soundtrack. If it wasn't a great soundtrack, considering what they pulled from with the Frankie Goes to Hollywood music, would be a travesty. But the versions of the songs in this are great. And it could be really repetitive, just hearing that Two Tribes loop. Strangely enough, it never gets repetitive. Yeah, fantastic game. All round. Thoroughly deserved its gold medal.
Absolutely, it did. No, and just a nod there to Fred Gray for doing such a great job on the old Frankie Goes to Hollywood. It could have gone horribly wrong, that. It could have.
Really, absolutely.
I mean, you're taking on Frankie Goes to Hollywood, so really what you're taking on is Trevor Horn and Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So you either do that justice or you are doomed, especially at that time, because they were really revered, and Welcome to the Pleasure Dome is such a good album that, but he did it justice. He really did, and I don't think anyone's ever complained about the music to Frankie Goes to Hollywood. It's definitely great. As we've said with other games, it made a great game. Just it made it really, you were really then immersed in the Frankie Goes to Hollywood kind of ethos and world, and wanting to reach the Pleasure Dome became something, of an addiction, because the game is addictive. I can't explain quite why, but you do want to just keep at it and figuring stuff out. But I quite think it's because it's got an air of mystery, and that does keep you hooked in. So well done, gold medal, well deserved for me.
Absolutely. Best thing from Denton Designs. Best thing they ever did, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant game. And Ocean, Imagine play the game. 2 crackers from them this month.
Yes, they were really on fire with this stuff.
Yeah, they were. So hats off. But we'll put our hats back on for our next game, our final game for this section, where we look at Merlin from the incredible highs of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I like to I never know when I put these games together. Some I've never heard of, so I don't know what we're going to get. But it's got 55 in the magazine, and I think it's too high.
You don't need to take a lot of time with it. It was a crappy Jetpack-ish rip-off.
Jetpack, that's what it reminded me of.
It was based around, there's no doubt around it. It was based around Jetpack, but it was just crap. Weirdly out of scale graphics, horrible sound effects. It didn't play very well. It wasn't any fun. If you're going to play this, play Jetpack.
Yeah.
Because it was the Jetpack, the premise of Jetpack, for those that don't know, or those kind of games, is you are single screen, you are a person on a jetpack, or in this instance, Merlin on a broom, I think, or a wizard flying around anyway. You've got to collect stuff and load up the rocket ship in Jetpack. In this instance, put things in the cauldron. You can land in this game and walk along the foot like you can in Jetpack. You can pick stuff up like you can in Jetpack. The only thing you can't do is fly, because on Jetpack, I think you can go through the screen at the top, so you can fly across the top of the screen and loop, whereas you can't in this, I think. I didn't get that far into it because I like Jetpack, so if I'm going to play a game that's like Jetpack, I'll just play Jetpack. I won't bother with this nonsense. And it was awful graphics anyway, awful. It looked like it wasn't quite finished. The cauldron was enormous. If you think of the scale of that wizard, the cauldron's like massive. A skyscraper. So it's just stupid stuff like that annoys me. I'm like, just utter rubbish. Take it away. Bah!
I put, even at £2.50, this isn't great.
No, make it stop.
Yeah, this was about. We're not going to say much more about this. It's like you said, single screen. Yeah, Jetpack. I was trying to place. For some reason, I had a mental blank on what it was, sort of thing. I think it was the game was so. The only thing I will say, it's not the worst thing we've ever played, but that in itself is no recommendation. So there we go. Merlin, don't play it. It's rubbish. We're not going to. No. We shall not waste your time.
No more time with
any more on that. All right, so that's it for this section. If you bear with us, we will be back soon, where we will be talking about film and TV in September 1985. Welcome back. We move into films and TV for September 1985. So, TV. There's not a lot going on this month. I reckon it's the summer months, things are probably a bit quiet. On the 7th of September, I've never heard of this, but I wondered if you had. The American sci-fi adventure series Otherworld makes its British television debut in the HTV region, and the series is aired by Anglia Border, Central, Grampian and Granada regions from the 2nd of November.
Doesn't sound like Yorkshire TV got it.
No, with most of the companies starting to screen it in 1986. You ever heard of this?
No, I've only heard of, and only because I remember some vagaries about it being set on an Earth-like planet. I can't remember the name of it. Braille, Foul, Blal, or something weird like that. But
yeah, I looked at the plot, and it's a family that sort of falls through something to another world.
Yeah, it had a familiarity. It's a bit like what's the one where they go on the big spaceship and Lost in Space. It had a
Lost in Space
tonality of Lost in Space, from what I remember. I don't remember watching it though. But then it wasn't in the Yorkshire TV region. We were disavowed. We weren't allowed it. So
well, it does say that it did come to everywhere else, apart from Thames and LWC. So we may have. I've heard of most sci-fi series from around that period in some way or another, but this was just like, I've never heard of it. I wondered if you had. I wondered if it's something that you had come across.
It's not something that's ever come across my radar. I might try and track it down to see what it's like. If it's early 80s, mid 80s sci-fi from America, it'll probably have that kind of, there's a look and feel to all of their sci-fi from that period. And I hate to say it, because remember that Battlestar Galactica is where it got quite good for TV originally. Then Battlestar Galactica went 80s with, I'm not even saying it by name. Galactica 82. So
is that the one with the flying bikes?
That's we don't talk about that. It's got one good episode in the entire short, painfully but thankfully short run. So I suspect it's come around at that kind of time, but I don't know much about it. So it's something I'm going to track down and look into, because I am a big fan of 80s sci-fi, or whether it's good or bad. I'd like to give it a go. So I will check it out.
I'll leave that for you to do, and you can report back.
I'll tell you what, you leave that to me.
I will. Don't worry. More importantly, though, and this was a big thing, 9th of September, children's BBC premiered on BBC One.
Yes, definitely.
I thought this was earlier.
By brand, it appeared in 1985, but prior to that, they didn't call it children's BBC. It didn't have a brand and an identity.
This was children's TV sort of thing. You'd come home from school. There were so many good shows that aired on BBC children's TV that I loved so many of them. That I hum the theme tunes of them to this day. I'm probably going to get them mixed up with ITV, though, because there was probably a mix of both. But things like Cities of Gold, Dogtanian, I think Battle of the Planets that was on there.
That was ITV.
Battle of the Planets was ITV, was it? All right, okay, fair enough. What other great shows were in that sort of thing? Was Ulysses, that was BBC? Was that BBC?
That was BBC, I think. You actually might have been.
Yeah.
It could have been CITV. I think it was BBC.
Dungeons and Dragons, that was BBC, I'm sure of it.
The BBC tended not to go for American syndicated stuff. BBC was things like Danger Mouse was BBC, I think.
They did have a Red Hand Gang. I remember that.
Possibly.
Remember Red Hand Gang?
Was that BBC? Was that because they had Why Don't You? That was a BBC show. Because they had regional.
Yeah, that was in the morning.
Yeah, but they had what I mean is they had regional kids shows that would often like things like. Rent a Ghost was BBC and stuff like that. So I don't know. They definitely had Willy Fogg and they definitely had Dogtanian, because I remember them doing the sing-alongs, and Mysterious Cities of Gold. I don't know about Inspector Gadget, but possibly those. No,
that was ITV. That was definitely ITV.
So, but yeah, ITV very much borrowed, didn't they? The format and everything else. And of course, what we're also forgetting is children's TV also represents Saturday morning television.
Yes.
Now that had already been there with Noel Edmonds and the Swap Shop. Up until Tiswas came along in ITV and really broke the mould completely about what that needed to be. And then Saturday Superstore came along, which later developed into, a whole different format. I remember seeing an interview with Philip Schofield who said that it genuinely was a cupboard. So it wasn't like it was they used to call it then Philip Strip, but it was actually a cupboard he was in, because they never put a lot of money into it. But I think you got Grangill on there, of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was showing before then, wasn't it? Sort of thing.
It was. That'd been around in the 70s, but it became that children's BBC became those programs on there, and there's Playbus, Playdays, Going Live was part of that sort of. Byker Grove was one of theirs.
Yeah.
Blue Peter, of course. loads. But then you've got We Are the Champions, I think was BBC, and there's quite a few. And of course, then you've got the famous sidekicks, Gordon the Gopher, you're right, of course, Ed the Duck, so on and so on and so forth.
Wasn't it?
It was.
Ed the Duck.
Live and Kicking was one of the shows. Saturday Morning with Dick and Dom came later, and
yeah,
oh gosh.
I mean, I suppose it all grew out of Swap Shop, didn't it?
It did, actually, yeah. It did. You don't realise how many shows that they pioneered, really, at children's BBC, you know. Things like just this whole slew of them. Pingu, Fireman Sam began there, and my gosh.
And like you said, it then split into CBBC, CBeebies, all the children's channels and stuff like that. It's just start over here. I'm sure in America these things were already going on, but over here it was a big deal. It was a space specifically for kids to watch. You know, it was a time for us to have the TV, you know, and enjoy something and feel part of something with, you know, with presenters from Swap Shop and things like that going live. But to actually have a presenter linking this kind of thing was quite interesting. And
existed at that little sweet spot between children getting home from school and the news at 6 o'clock, didn't it? So they had a little mix of programmes. And ITV had their own variants as well, and they did some real strong contenders. They gave the BBC a run for their money. They didn't have it easy, the BBC.
No, they didn't. ITV had Book Tower, which I love.
Yeah, but you think that for every Danger Mouse, they had Nightmare in ITV with Trey Guard.
Nightmare, yeah.
And as much as it's crazy stupid in many ways, I tell you what, that was the go-to show. And if you weren't watching Nightmare, as much as it's weird to think of it now,
it's really weird. Nightmare.
How much mileage can you get from a green screen? Turns out a lot. Turns out loads of mileage.
A green screen and a helmet.
The thing is, kids could do that show in their own bedrooms on a fairly rudimentary laptop these days, probably on their iPhone.
Yeah,
Amazing.
They probably could.
The bloody technology they've got these days, kids and that.
So there you go. That was the start of children's telly being a proper thing.
Was
really at Children's BBC. 28th of September, there was a sadder time, a sadder moment in our TV history, because after 20 years, ITV's Saturday afternoon sports programme, World of Sport, is aired for the last time.
Was that with Dickie Davis, was that?
It was with Dickie Davis, yes. Was it a poor man's grandstand? Was it just a vehicle for Big Daddy?
Yeah, it was the only place you could watch British wrestling.
It really was. I was always on around Saturday tea time, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know, I have quite a soft spot for two reasons for World of Sport. One, I tended to avoid it generally, because there was some, like the wrestling, if you called it, fine, but there was mostly just coverage of sports that I wasn't that interested in, racing and other bits and bobs. But it was what it was. There was a really funny, I don't know if anybody will remember Benny Hill nowadays, tragedy really, but Benny Hill was a comedian on TV at the time, famously overly sexist and not stuff you get away with now by any stretch of the imagination, but he did a version of World of Sport, but he called it Sport of World, where everything was just reversed. And so the football, when they kicked the football, it was the ball in reverse, so it just flew to his foot. It was quite funny at the time, I suppose. You can YouTube that. It's on there on YouTube. We'll put the link on the website when we do it. But World of Sport, I never really watched it. Did you watch? Was it compulsive watching for you? Because you're well into your TV sports, whereas I really wasn't. So.
Well, it was, because for me, it was the thing. It was depending on what sport was on, because obviously on BBC One you had Grandstand, and so this was ITV's equivalent, and this was a bit more, I don't know, it was a bit more, there were weirder sports on this sort of thing. So Grandstand would be quite typical on a Saturday afternoon. World of Sport would be, you get some quite eclectic, weird sports on there. It was almost like sometimes like you get what's that weird sports show you get in the middle of the night, Transworld Sport. It felt a bit like that on occasion, sort of thing. But yeah, it was your only place to watch wrestling, and British wrestling was a law unto itself back in the 80s.
Yes, it was.
Dickie Davis was a really good presenter. It was. I seem to remember the sort of thing. You had this double bill of World of Sport, and I want to put these two together, but I'm not sure if they are together. But you had Saint and Greavesy.
That was on Saturday morning,
in the afternoon. It was Saturday lunchtime sort of thing. So St. Greasy went up against Football Focus. These weird sort of, football rivalry sort of things.
Just for those that won't have a clue who you're talking about, that was who was Saint and who was Greavesy.
It was Ian St. John, who was and Jimmy Greaves, both ex-footballers from the sort of 60s, 70s era, who played for, I think Ian St. John played for Liverpool, and Jimmy Greaves, I think, was Tottenham. They had a sort of, not love-hate, but sort of, a sort of
banter
sort of relationship where they would talk about the week in football, basically. And this would be up against Football Focus, which was the BBC's early Saturday afternoon, where they would be talking about, whereas now you've got an entire afternoon of football with, Jeff Stelling and, all that kind of stuff on Sky TV. This, you'd get like half an hour of football coverage before the games. It would all happen at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon. And then you'd choose whether to watch the results on World of Sport or Grandstand. It was always dependent on what sport, but I was quite sad when World of Sport did end, because I think it was a decent alternative to Grandstand, and like you said, I quite liked my TV sport back in the 80s.
Did you watch the On the Ball section of that, which was a preview of the day's football action?
Yeah, I think so. That was that was
a segment of World of Sport.
Yes, that was early in the afternoon. That was the bit it was up against. I think you had Saint and Greasy, then it went into that. Although Saint and Greasy may have come later. I find it hard to sort of place these in the timeline.
I'm just looking at the list of eclectic sports they covered. And this reads like Summer Games 2 or Summer Games 3.
This is what I mean. Yeah.
So you've got in here, for example, hockey, netball, lacrosse, water skiing, stock car racing, ice, speedway, NASCAR, World Barrel Jumping Championships, show jumping and equestrian, and it even showed snooker. So,
that was the thing.
Don't forget 10-pin bowling and kart racing.
Grandstand was very BBC. It was very BBC in the 80s. It was very British. There's a British sports. We'd have lots of snooker. We'd have lots of this sort of thing. World of Sport. Like Trans World Sport. These are sports from around the world that we've got some rights to show. Like you said, barrel jumping. Why the hell not? And so it was much more entertaining than Grandstand ever was.
And of course, it had the results service.
Which is where you got the footy results from the
Diddy print. Yeah, because people who did the pools, of course.
Do you want to know the rules of the? I know the rules of the pools.
I just know that was something that people tuned into the halftime and results service for.
You had to get 24 or 23 points. You got 3 points for a score draw, 2 for a non-score draw, 1 for an away win, I think, and 0 for a home win. So you wanted basically 8 score draws, and so you could buy up to I think 12 crosses. But the more you bought, the less your chance the less your odds were of winning. Or the more your odds were, the less you actually won. If you only bought 8 and got 8, you won the jackpot. There you go. My misspent youth. Putting X's
the thing
in.
is, the things that just don't exist now, but the Pools man used to come round.
He did.
There's the guy that came round and
man.
Yeah, exactly. The Pools man and the Pop man and all these things existed in this world because they didn't have such thing as the mobile internet, the internet, or anything else. Actual human contact, something that in these dark times is a rare treat. It was, it was a time when people were more social and you could have complete strangers who would come around to your house to check on your gambling habit. Perfectly normal in every way.
Followed by a man who would sell you dubious pop.
Yeah, bar. From the company called Bar, the mysterious bar organisation.
And then a guy come around with a suitcase with loads of bags of sweets.
Well, dodgy or sweets or otherwise, they sure made a good dandelion and burdock.
They did.
Yeah.
We had many a stained cup.
Yes, well, he would do with that because it is.
Would.
It's got dandelions and burdock in it.
Right, let's quickly move on to films. So the films released in the UK in September 85, Desperately Seeking Susan on the 6th of September.
AKA Desperately Seeking Story.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not big fan of this. It's more, I think it's the most highly regarded of Madonna's films.
Which isn't saying a lot. No, Evita's probably the best one, I think.
Maybe Dick Tracy, I don't know.
No.
But Desperately Seeking Susan, because pretty much Madonna is not the point of it. It's got Rosanna Arquette and I can't remember the guy's
She bumps her head,
name,
doesn't she, and thinks she is Madonna essentially in that.
Yeah. So,
and Into the Groove is from that film.
It is, yes. It's very much a mid-80s high-concept film. Followed the week after by Cocoon.
Aye. How many OAPs can you fit in a bath? Turns out quite a few.
Quite a few, yeah, especially if they're
It's a good film, Cocoon,
aliens.
actually.
Yeah, it's an interesting film. It's it's another one explaining who made Steve Guttenberg a star.
Oh, of course, it's Steve Guttenberg in that. Yes,
it is Steve Guttenberg.
He was in the 80s.
Brian Dennehy as well. It's that bit where he lowers his thing, doesn't he? Lowers his glows.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
where he shows you that they're aliens, sort of thing.
No,
anyone who didn't know, Cocoon was some aliens that could make people young with special water. That's all I remember.
That's all there is to it, really. And then insert old people who go young shenanigans. And then there's sadness about it at the end, which I'm not going to say because that would spoil it for anyone that was thinking of brushing off and watching Cocoon.
And then we had, on the 20th September, we had 2 films released. The Holcraft Covenant.
Never heard of it.
Or the Holcraft Covenant. Michael Caine film.
That doesn't necessarily mean a good thing. And that this time he's going through somewhat of a dark period.
Well, according to IMDb, this is the son of a German general becomes part of a mysterious conspiracy to gain hidden Nazi funds.
There was a few of those kind of films around that time. Boys from Brazil was around that time, wasn't it? And Marathon Man and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly. It was directed by John Frankenheimer, who did Island of Dr. Moreau and Ronin.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, decent enough. And then there was Code of Silence on the same day. Now, I believe Code of Silence is a Chuck Norris film, isn't it?
It has all the hallmarks of one, if it's not, because that sounds like a Chuck Norris title.
It certainly is. Code of Silence is a Chuck Norris. A Chicago cop is caught in the middle of a gang war while his own comrades shun him because he wants to take down an irresponsible cop. The picture has him wielding a massive shotgun.
It sounds to me like that role could have been played by him or any one of 10 action heroes at that time.
It's got a great tagline, which is Eddie Cusack's a good cop having a very bad day. Cobra.
Well, the thing is, it's easy to think of the 80s and just focus on Schwarzenegger and Stallone movies. And you can forget things like Delta Force and Code of Silence and those exist. And Chuck Norris movies are actually pretty good. No, they're not to be sniffed at. So they're not, because it's got a good action pedigree. You know, this guy fought Bruce Lee. I mean, come on.
He did?
No, and that is a great fight scene, whichever way you look at it. I mean, because it does go on forever in that movie, but that's by the by. So I would recommend you revisit, if you get an opportunity, some of the old Chuck Norris action movies from the 80s, because they're pretty good. The soundtrack's always good. Just don't look into his local, more recent politics, because that might put you off him. But ignore that. Just go back to the 80s when he was kind of, the Chuck Norris that could literally punch the beak off a seagull.
Do you know who else is in Code of Silence? Henry Silver.
Oh, of course he is. Of course he is, yeah. Is it bullshit or not?
Or not. Yeah. And there's also Ralph Foodie, is played by Craggy.
I thought he was going to say Ralph McTell.
No, he's played by Craggy.
Oh, Craggy. Well, he's probably in quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Ralph Foodie plays Craggy.
I was going to say, it's not likely to be that way round.
Alan Hamilton plays Pirelli. I'm hoping he's the maker of the tyres.
I suspect he's probably a gangland Italian mafioso that they've just...
Hey, I'm Pirelli.
Yeah. You messed with Pirelli. You wake up with a tyre in your bed.
I leave my tread on you.
I'll give him a tyre he won't refuse.
Absolutely. It's time to change the wheels on this guy.
Jimmy Two Tyres is in that film, surely.
It sounds like you need an axling.
I'm going to go get my tyres changed. My tyres changed. It's Jimmy Two Tyres. Right, enough now. The Code of Silence must now be switched on.
We must now enact the Code of Silence.
Yes, the Cosa Nostra. Immediately.
There we go. On that note, that ends our rumination on films and TV from September 1985. I leave you with the tyres. Welcome back. That were the films, and now we've got more games for you. So another 3 games that were reviewed in this issue, September 95 of Zap 64. We've got our cricket face-off, bowl-off, run-off, whatever you want to call it. We're going to start off with Beefy Botham, Ian Beefy Botham.
Beefy Botham.
Ian Beefy Botham's Test Cricket. Yeah, this is crap.
Yes, simple. Yeah, it is.
This is really bad. And in fact, my comment on this is, what is with crap cricket games? So this is, my comment, trying to fit all the pitch on the screen is a bad idea. It's really bad. You've got...
Especially at that angle.
What angle is it? I couldn't work it out.
I want to use the term isometric, but it's sort of not.
It's not. I don't know what it is. It's an angle. Let's leave it at that.
Yes.
It's an angle. So... I don't remember. This game was crap. The thing was, you start off by placing your players around the pitch.
You do.
And then you just try and play cricket, but I think I gave up after about 2 bowls.
Yep.
I couldn't go on. It was just rubbish.
Yep.
I mean, even in Zap, and remember, Zap have given Rupert 71. They've given 5 aside 60. They've given this 32. This should tell you some way of the quality of this game. This was $9.95. And again, the other thing as well, which I did note, is similar to Miguel Ace. This says 1984 on the credits. This feels like there's something going on in the cricket world probably at this time. Maybe the Ashes are on, or something's going on. So this feels like a quick cash grab. And it's £9. This is premium pricing.
It's rubbish.
For
rip-off.
What is a piece of arse?
It's rip-off. It's a rip-off. I put it's awful in every way. It is.
Yeah. I put the awful advert last time was better than this game.
Yeah, and that's saying something, isn't it? I managed to get someone out on the first bowl. I don't know how. I don't know what I was doing. And then, I don't know if this happened to you, a giant duck appeared and coughed up the cricket ball.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is going on?
No,
and then that
no
was
idea.
when I was just reaching slowly for the off button going, yes, you shall never be seen again in Botham cricket game. You are no more. And I needed to erase it from my eyes. It was awful, awful, awful.
It was crap. I mean, we're usually, not so harsh on games, but this, I think I'd prefer to play Tim Loves Cricket. If you force me to play a cricket game.
And you'd need to be, if there was a bullet in the head was an option at this point, you'd be thinking, looking at these 3 games and looking at the end of that gun going, I'm debating this, and should I be debating this? Should I just go for this cricket game bonanza? Honestly, it's awful. No,
awful.
I don't get why they can't get it right, and it doesn't get much better, even with the bloody next one, does it?
No, so let's move on because I don't want to talk about cricket too long, sort of thing. So, Graham, our next one is our other cricket star from around the time, sort of thing. I'm surprised there's no, well, what's his name? The Yorkshire guy, Jeff Boycott.
Jeff Boycott,
there's surely a Jeff Boycott.
There will be somewhere. Jeff Boycott's
somewhere along the line.
Bonanza, golf cricket bonanza or something.
Graham Gooch's Test cricket. This was much better received. Scored a 73 with £8.95, so cheaper. Yeah. And, it's certainly the best cricket game we've looked at. It's pretty fast. It's nice big sprites, well animated. It looks like cricket at least.
Yes.
There's some decentness to it. There's like, how's that? Is that in this one?
Yeah.
There's the speech, which made me laugh. There's, people get past it. It moves past. There's replays. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this. I hated the menus.
What, you mean the clickathon?
You have to wait until the player you want comes around again. Why is it doing this?
Yeah, and you just have to keep clicking. Click, 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 click. Choose your players. Click, 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 click. Choose your players' positions. Click, 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 click. Would you like this? Click. Would you like that? Click. Just let me start the damn game already.
Yeah.
But it is for real cricket enthusiasts because all those are legitimate cricket player names with legitimate cricket player stats, and this is for the real status. This is the Football Manager equivalent, I think, really, of cricket games. So people who really like cricket and know their cricketers were going to love all that.
Yeah, because the first time I played the simulation mode.
Yeah.
And I don't think you actually played in that mode. I didn't seem to be doing anything. It was just playing itself.
Yeah.
And I thought at that point, maybe I'm the manager.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. But then I tried arcade mode. And in that I could actually swing stuff and hit things, sort of thing. It's cricket. It's, know.
They got the perspective right, didn't they, finally?
Yes, they did.
That position for a cricket game is the right position. Strangely, it's the one that they use when they actually show cricket on TV. So that would have been a giveaway. So when they choose to film cricket, what they don't do is set the camera 17 miles from the cricketers at a really jaunty angle and then expect that to work. They do just sort of pitch it behind the umpire and up slightly. Why? Because you can see everything that's going on.
Yeah, and they cut as well. So they cut to the field as well when stuff's going on. When you hit the ball. So it's a close up on the crease. It's a close up on the crease. So the bit where the action happens in cricket. So the bowler runs up and it hits it. Then it cuts to a wider view of the different parts of the pitch where the fielders are and might get caught out or people run, catch it and throw it back, and it moves at quite a decent pace. As a cricket, this is the best one we've looked at. And that may be damning with faint praise because the others were garbage. But, as a representation of the sport, like you said, I think this would please people who liked cricket more than any of the others would. Yeah,
in the prettiest turd competition, this one was the winner. And I have to say, the dubiously titled Graham Gooch, it's a good job it's that way around and not Graham's Gooch because no one wants to go there. So, and if you don't know what that's referring to, just Google the Gooch and you'll soon find out which part of a male anatomy that is, or should I say which area between the male anatomy that is.
Oh.
Yeah, so nobody wants to go near that crease.
Oh.
The Gooch is too near the crease. That must have been said by somebody in a cricket commentator. Must have said Graham Gooch is too near the crease.
Oh, ball before wicket.
Anyway, out of the crap cricket games, this is the least crappest. So there you go.
There you go. So that's Zapped to the past cricket recommendation is Graham Gooch's Test cricket.
Go for Gooch.
If you really don't like yourself, grab
it by the Gooch.
If in doubt, go for the Gooch.
Which, to be surprised, in a lot of situations that can get you out of it.
If you put the three surnames together, you get Love Botham's Gooch.
No one. No.
Love Botham Gooch.
Ew.
No one loves Botham's Gooch.
No one loves Botham's Gooch.
Not even his wife.
Goodness, no. Too near the crease. Too near the crease.
Actually, the next title of this could be further play on this sort of thing. Our next game, okay, we've had the advert. Let's now look at the first of what is going to be a series of games from a company that is going to go on to define certain areas of video games. Yep. I think it's safe to say we're going to get 4 games from these in quick succession over the next few months that are like another step above. And this is the first one. So we're going to look at Rescue on Fractalus, a delicious pun on words for that title there, Fractalus. Mm-hmm. For what it is, sort of thing. So Rescue on Fractalus, we've spoken about the advert. Essentially, it's a sort of a rescue flight flight sim where you pilot a craft over fractally generated mountainous alien landscapes to land on them when you're rescuing downed pilots, shooting attacking UFOs and gun emplacement, and trying to bring back all your colleagues who have, for whatever reason, are stranded on this alien planet. It's not 100% successful in its viewpoint. Not 100%. It kind of works, and it's got one of the good things it does have. It has a great atmosphere. It really does have a really great atmosphere to this. The fractal graphics sort of thing. So what it could do is it would generate these graphics on the fly using I'm not a mathematician. Fractal mathematics. So this was doing something different rather than sort of having these mountainous landscapes pre-rendered and pre-programmed in. It was generating them on the fly procedurally, I guess. This is early procedural generation to some degree. And so it was very clever in that respect. But they didn't quite work. It's not quite solid enough. This would be bettered in the later games. So essentially what you're doing is you're flying over these mountains, shooting down ships, landing, and rescuing your pilots who would run up. And the great thing is, you would once you'd rescued them all, you just simply press a key and get beamed back up to your mothership. Elite, take a lesson. You just get straight back up and then thrown back out again. You get down to the next level and off you do. And you repeat and just repeat. It has some really, really nice touches. Not all the people that you rescue are people.
That's right.
Sometimes they are aliens. And you have a great sequence of events and what you have to do to get the people there. So you have to initiate landing. So you have to slow down and find a place to land. When you're close enough, because your radar will start flashing. So you have to initiate landing and land. When you land, you put the landing gear down, and then you have to turn off all your system. Otherwise, you've got like a radio,
You've got to turn off your shield.
You've got a force field around your ship, haven't you? So you've got to turn off your shield. That will then instigate your down pilot to come running towards you. They will run underneath your cockpit. So at this point, you're waiting for two things. One, you'll hear like a really cool bang on the hull, the door. And if you hear that, you open the airship, they climb on in, you close up, take off again, fine. Other times sort of thing, you get a big green alien hammering on the windscreen, and you've got to turn back on your shields quickly to vaporize them. It's not that hard, but it's fun. This is a fun exploratory game, and you can see as a proof of concept of what's going to come later with games like Coronis Rift, Ballblazer, and the Eidolon. This is a good first start. There's some really nice touches to this. My favourite, and I don't think I've seen this in other games, is the dual altimeter bar. I don't know if you noticed it. So you've got a bar with a red part at the bottom and a white part that goes up, and the red part is the height of the landscape below you, and the white bar that is above it is how high you are above the landscape.
Yeah.
So as the red bar gets closer to the top of the white bar, you're closer to the ground. And because it's simulating, flying over a mountainous, rugged landscape, it's a really, really clever system. So you constantly know your height without it having to tell you you're at this. Because, being 400 feet high is of no use if the landscape below you is 380 feet high. The closeness to what you are to it is what you need to know. And this is a really elegant system to actually display that information. Really clever. I enjoyed my time with this. I thought it was good. What did you think?
It was good then. And it's good now. I think I would go one step further. I think this is possibly the world's first-person shooter, because it's almost from a first-person perspective, really.
Yeah.
Because you're looking out of the eyes of somebody, whether it's through a visor or a screen or a front of a spaceship. It's procedurally generated landscapes. That's pioneering. Like you say, it's early days, but it's pretty brave to even try it on a machine like C64. The ideas behind the game, like you say, there are little finishing touches. The altimeter is one of them. The idea that sometimes the pilots that you rescue are not who they appear to be, and they can get inside your spaceship if you let them, and that can cause all sorts of problems. And they have a different knock, which you have to listen for. So you've got to be careful with that. Also, of course, if you're feeling mean, you don't have to let the people you're rescuing in, and they bang repeatedly on the door, and then gradually it slows down, and then you let them die, which is a bit mean. And you can do that, but it's little touches like that make it kind of special. And so it has that about it, because obviously the planet that you're on is completely toxic, which is why you've got shields and why your pilots have got a short amount of time to be rescued before they all die, which is why you've got to go and get them. Because it's the radiation, you're shielded from the radiation, you pick up, that's how it works. So there's a lot to like about this. I like the graphics. In the annals of these games, I preferred this to Coronis Rift just because I found Coronis Rift a bit confusing, but when we do repeat play that, I might have a different perspective. But in this early version, this is the pioneering LucasArts games, really. So LucasArts,
yeah, I forgot to mention this is LucasArts. Yeah.
So it's an Activision game, but it's LucasArts behind the scenes. The Ballblazer, LucasArts, and this was their first kind of foray into what was for them completely new territory. And as you say, they start to genre define in a very quick space of time. Still done some amazing stuff. This is, I think, a very early, arguably first-person shooter. Really neat idea. Apparently, the idea for the change, because originally it was just go to the ground, pick up the people, take off. And then the person who said it might be a good idea to make some of the people you pick up the aliens was George Lucas himself. So there you go. There's a little interesting. Yes, that's a little trivial fact for you. This has had the hand of George Lucas in it. Ironically, he didn't insert politics, so lots of crazy scenes of people arguing in a giant arena and all sorts of stuff like that. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's graphically great. I think it's good fun. I can see it getting a bit repetitive, but it's quite a challenge to get in because it gets harder. You get suicide UFOs later down that just ram into you and stuff. So you've got a little bit of that to navigate, and the landscape you can't argue with it not being varied because it's completely random every time. So sometimes I think it gets confusing in layout because you can get a bit lost in your visuals. So you're trying to sort of get your bearings a bit, and you're not quite sure. Even with the altimeter, you're not quite sure whether you're going to hit the ground where you are with things, and sometimes it's hard to judge the distance of how far things are away from you by the visuals. On the radar and things, you've got a good idea, but when you're shooting at things, you're not quite sure where things are at and what's going on. But that said,
that's what Coronis Rift does better, and this is all single colour, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like say,
so it's hard to judge days.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, it's got a special place for me. This rescue on Fractalus. I lost count the amount of people I've left to die on planets just so I could listen to them knocking helplessly on the outside of my spaceship, which maybe says a lot about me. But a clever little game, very well put together. But that was LucasArts' thing, and as we will see from them, they go to an amazing place with some of their games. This is, this is your starting point, right? You're going to be this good from the start. Only look at some of the other games that we've had to endure compared to this, where they've started. And you think, well, this is how to do it. If you're going to do it like that. Yeah. Great game. Really good fun. I say, I don't know how much, if you were doing this for 50 levels, I don't know how much fun it would be after 50 landings and 50 pickups and 50 takeoffs and all the rest of it, but it'd keep you entertained for a couple of hours. I think that's good value for money in my book. Playable to this day.
But yeah, it's good. Rescue on Fractalus is worth a look back sort of thing, because like we said, it is the starting point for LucasArts, Lucas Games, Lucasfilms, whatever. I can never get the name right at this point. But
it's LucasArts at this point.
It's LucasArts, isn't it? Yeah. So from what they go on to do sort of thing. And like I said, this run of 4 games that they suddenly just unleash. Because I think these were Atari 800 games, weren't they? And they were like, you won't get these running on the C64.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And so like Drop Zone before it, when in the hands of capable developers, the C64 is more than enough to actually render these games and do them justice. And I think that's another example of that here. So yeah, we like Rescue on Fractalus. It took away the taste of the cricket Gooches, put it that way. There's those 3 games. Sorry about the cricket. Let's move on. So we're going to look at one of the features from Zapped and have a bit of a chat about that in our next section. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Okay, welcome back. So we've looked at there on Rescue on Fractalus. What have we got now? We're going to look at something from this issue of Zap 64. A little bit light on features in this issue, but what they have started is they've started their own comic. And the comic they have chosen to do is it's Oliver Frey who's managed to get them to agree to do this sort of thing. This is the Terminal Man. So Graham, tell us about the Terminal Man.
I don't know a lot about, it's not something I followed, or I wasn't really into comics at the time. Later came to sort of like them. I never really dove into it, the Terminal Man. So I don't know if it's based on the film The Terminal Man or whether it's based on something else about the Terminal Man. All I can really say is that it was, I don't know how many, did it run for 12 episodes, I think, in total?
I think so, yeah. There was a part 2 as well, I seem to remember later.
Yeah, I think so. And believe it or not, you can actually buy it as a book, separate book now. So if I'm Amazon, you can get the Terminal Man. So it's something to do with some kind of crash of a spaceship, a giant spaceship, like a cruise liner type spaceship, I think, and it crashes in this peculiar planetary system unknown to man. It's a complete, nobody knows anything, and then obviously they've got to try and survive, and they've got to try and get back to Earth. So it's a bit of a quest to get back, and this particular man steps up to become the hero of the Terminal Man, and the comic is about that journey, that quest of trying to get back to Earth from this strange place where they've found themselves. That's the story in a nutshell. The actual episode 1 that's in this issue sort of sets the tone for the very first, I think the very first image, if I remember right, is the crashing spaceship blowing up and on fire. this really dramatic image of a fireball and smashing into the earth and stuff like that. That's as much as I remember of it. I don't remember getting into it in a big way, but I do remember when I was revisiting this, looking at this, how amazing the comic artwork is and how confused I was that Oliver Frey did not do more comics. Maybe he did. I don't know. What do you know about Oliver Frey?
I know very little beyond. He did
I've actually met him, and he's a lovely guy. I met him at the Replay convention at Blackpool many moons ago. A lovely, lovely guy. And I don't even then. I think I got a bit starstruck, and I don't remember asking him much about how or why he did the things he did, because he was very much a super art contractor. So he just did all this stuff because he was paid to do it, and just did the best he could. And as you can see, his artwork is amazing. So, but were you into these kind of comics? Were you into your Dread comics and stuff like that? So did this appeal to you? Because at the time I wasn't into it, so I didn't buy into it really.
It did, yes. I mean, I remember reading it at the time. I thought it was really good. I think, like you, I was more taken by the artwork. He just had an ability. He had a particular style. I was, 12, 13. It's not like I was some kind of art aficionado or anything, or knew much about what was going on in the art world. This was pre-internet, so you kind of got what you got in the papers or something like that. You didn't see much. But I did like 2000 AD. I was a 2000 AD fan back in around that time. So I liked things like Judge Dredd, Slain, Nemesis, and that kind of thing. I was more of a Judge Dredd fan and some classic stuff like that. I had a couple of friends who were really into it, and I would read their copies of their comics, and I really liked that sort of that sort of dystopian sci-fi type of deal that Judge Dredd sort of reveled in. I'm not sure many other comics that were around at the time. I was never a big classic Marvel DC comics fan. Those kind of things did absolutely nothing for me. They just were over my head or around me sort of thing. They were just I just wasn't a big superhero fan. No. I don't think I preferred stuff where things were a bit darker and a bit grimmer and a bit grittier. Yeah. And the superhero stuff always seemed it just seemed a bit too American. I preferred the British slant on it.
Yeah, I liked Eagle for that reason. I liked Van Dare. I liked that whole. I liked the reissue of Eagle that came out in the very early. Was it very late 70s, early 80s, wasn't it? So around 1980 when you had the Eagle was reissued after sort of an absence, and Dan Dare was in that. And this has that kind of feel. The tonality of this and the language of this is certainly not something that's made for your average kid. I mean, just look at this, listen to this dialogue. And this is from the Terminal Man, one of his sort of principal speeches in the comic book. He says, this system is a Dyson sphere. Its outer worlds have been broken up and brought in to form a sphere close to the binary star. That technology to build such a thing is not yet available to man, and none have ever been found in the Milky Way galaxy. You must face the fact that we ourselves may not be in that galaxy anymore. This is not aimed at average Joe 10-year-old or 15-year-old. This is adult, not adult in tonality and by rudeness or anything, but it's complex science description stuff. It's proper sci-fi, and totally refreshing to find in something like a computer magazine. I mean, they're just innovators in that space. Zap.
Yeah, they weren't afraid to try something different. It's like, what?
Absolutely not.
Because I think at this point, sort of thing, we're five issues in. There's probably been a lot of praise for the artwork on the covers and everything, I would imagine. So I'm thinking, they're probably gone. Chatted to Oliver Frey, and he's gone, I could probably do that. I wouldn't mind doing a comic. And they've probably just got, okay. They're not afraid to try this. Why not? Why not put a sci-fi comic at the back end of SAP? Why not? It just seems like such a natural thing to sort of put in there because it's in their wheelhouse, in that demographic. It is something that's going to stretch your readers. Your readers are, of a certain age sort of thing, will probably be, I imagine, sort of thing, if you had a Venn diagram of like Crash, Zap, and 2000 AD readers, there'd be there'd be a big overlap between, your readers of your Crash and Zap and 2000 AD. That would be quite a big overlap, I think. So I think they probably knew that the type of games that people were playing, the type of games that were being made, these sort of sci-fi games, and the type of films that were coming out that people were probably enjoying. Your films like, I don't know if Aliens is out at this point, but certainly films like Alien, Blade Runner, and all that kind of stuff that these guys were probably loving. Your birth of video and all the sci-fi stuff and the weirdness that were probably hitting VHS video. It was a big sort of, I remember sort of thing being 13 at this time, and there just being so much stuff to watch. Not Netflix style stuff, but loads of new weird stuff that was on video and coming out of the cinema. Not your Holdcraft Covenants and stuff like that, but there was older films or older sort of sci-fi stuff was kind of becoming a bit more accessible, and so this to me seems like this is a logical thing to include. But I think you're right. This is a not brave, but this is them eschewing that typical. Oh, you need some listings, you need some that sort of thing. No, let's let our great cover artists put their comic in there.
Do you want to know some interesting trivia about Oliver Frey himself?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So, firstly, he was a director of Newsfield. So he was one of the directors of the magazine itself. Secondly, he actually drew Dan Dare.
Oh, really?
He's one of the original artists. And also, and here's an interesting fact. I don't know if you remember it, but do you remember the opening cartoon or comic strip bits in the original Superman movie, Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve? So right at the beginning, there's like a little comic strip.
Vaguely.
Yeah, that's Oliver Frey who drew that.
Wow.
So the guy's got a pedigree, and so for him to just decide to produce this comic strip and just put it in the magazine he happens to be working with, I think that's amazing. And the guy has got a crazy pedigree of art. If you look back over his history, it's not just about Dan Dare, but he's worked for some of the real big hitters in illustration and in commercial illustration. The guy is prolific, and so what you're looking at is a comic made by someone who really knows how to make them.
Yeah, and it looks great, and it does. It's
fantastic.
Interesting. It's I'm not sure. It's very different, and there's some not huge. I mean, what is it? About 6 pages long, but it's very much of its time. It's almost like there's almost an element of sort of New Barbarians in there, sort of thing, with the guys coming over the hills and to gather them up in nets or whatever, and he just horribly freezes them with liquid oxygen or whatever. It's like, oh, this is painful.
Yeah.
That's what.
And it's written by a chap called Kelvin Gosnell, who was a writer for 2000 AD.
Yeah.
So, and you can sort of see it, can't you? You can get that vibe for it.
Oh, absolutely. You could see. I'm surprised. Did Oliver Frey ever work for 2000 AD?
It doesn't say in the blurbs I've got, but as an illustrator, I don't think so. But you could do a lot of digging. There's actually, if you want to spend the time, we'll put some links in the website. There's actually some really good Oliver Frey compilation books and art books available that you can buy. They're all about 10 to 15 quid on Amazon, including the Terminal Man. You can buy that as a full paperback. It's 52 pages, so it's not like it's going to be a big read. But if you want a little slice of computer games history in a nice little comic book, then you can buy those. And of course, if you really like his artwork, in fact, let's face it, some people did so much they used it for their adverts. If you like his artwork, you can't go far wrong. I always thought the covers that he did because he did Crash as well, right? So he did the covers for Crash, he did the covers for Zap,
and then later Amtix, I think,
and the later Amstrad type magazines. And he also did all this comic book stuff and also this other stuff that he's done. He must have fallen asleep and continued to draw. He just was drawing non-stop.
I do seem to remember in one issue of Zap, I can't remember when it is, but they do a special on him and his process for painting him, sort of thing, and it shows you him, some close-ups. And I found that just a real fascinating view of sort of thing of just watching a great artist at work with these little, he does them all, airbrushed and stuff like that, and it's really, really clever. It's a really nice little article. I can't remember what what issue of Zap's in. It's what we said about Braybrook, sort of thing. They do these things about the creative process, and they include those things in their magazine, and they're not afraid to do that, which is quite unusual. But it's like a celebration of these are the people that create this, and this is how they do it. Because let's not forget, sort of thing, that running alongside all this sort of thing, we've still got Braybrook's Paradroid Diary as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
these things are all there. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the tone. I remember reading it at the time and enjoying it. I thought it was challenging to a 13-year-old me. Put it that way. It was like, okay, this is unusual. But I think because I liked Judge Dredd and 2000 AD and stuff like that, there was an immediate, this is something that I will quite happily buy into and see where it goes. And I was always going to buy Zap, so to me it was just like a nice little cherry on top, should we say? Yeah,
exactly. It goes without saying, Ollie Frey kind of is the kind of sets the tone and the graphics and the notions and the ideas for the kind of Sinclair Spectrum, and he is that kind of visual voice for the era of video games at that time, because his job was to take all those inspired ideas and make covers for them for those magazines, which he did with amazing skill. And I imagine he's probably he must be still drawing, still making amazing artwork. I don't doubt that.
I thought he passed away, didn't he?
Don't know that. I can't find anything to say that he has.
I thought he did. I thought it was a few years back. I seem to remember a big sort of outpouring of like he passed away. I may be wrong.
There's nothing in his biography that says that, and there's an oliverfreyart.com which features a load of stuff about him. I don't know that it doesn't say there that he's passed away. But if you're really interested in the history of Oliver Frey and
that's good. I've been disillusioned with that. I thought he died.
No, he's still going strong. And but like I say, there's a website, oliverfreyart.com, and it's got his biography and loads of links to the stuff that he's done. And so if you're really interested, you can go and find out more about him and see what you can even buy original Oliver Frey artworks. And he's done the cover for a few times now for Retro Gamer, the Retro Gamer magazine. So that sounds about right. But this was Terminal Man. I would suggest that if you want to go and read it, I've obviously this issue, and my intention is to actually read it in serial. So as we do each of these podcasts, I'm going to read it each time so I can get a kind of a feel for what it would have been like to pick it up on that kind of series, magazine issue by magazine issue basis. So I'm quite interested to find out what happens next.
Yeah, no, it's good. I seem to remember it being interesting enough. There we go. Oliver Frey and Terminal Man. That's our feature for this month. Sorry, not this month. Yeah, this month's issue of Zapped 64. We'll round off there, and we'll be back in a few moments with our last 3 games for this issue. Yeah, they're fun. See you in a bit. Welcome back to our last section, where we're going to go through our last 3 games from this issue of Zapped 64. Round up what we've talked about, pick our favourites from this issue, look at the last few Crapverts, what was riding high and then the charts, and then what we can expect hopefully from next time. So let's crack on. We've got 3 games to do. Our first one is something called Out on a Limb. You go for it. Go on, have it at it.
Okay, so the initial screen of this game, it looked like a compilation of other games had been smashed into each other and just exploded, and bits of those games were flying around. So the Manic Miner guy was flying about in there. So I initially thought this is a Manic Miner derivative, and I thought, this isn't started well. Then I started the game, and I was playing. I'm pretty sure that's the Mario character.
I thought that this had been hacked, but I'm looking at a screenshot here in Zap, and no, it's not.
So is it me, or is it the Mario character?
I thought it was. I thought this was the Mario sprite from something with it, from Donkey Kong or something. But it's clearly it's not. But it looks like it is.
Yeah, so it's ripped off sprites, I think, in actuality. I'm pretty sure, because the opening sequence definitely had Manic Miner sprite in it, without a doubt, or was it Jet Set Willy, or whichever one, but it had the little guy out of one of those games. So you've got a Mario-esque character, shall we say. I'm pretty sure it's Mario. And then the idea of the game was that you've got to jump continuously upwards on this giant beanstalk, and then when you get to the top of that, you've got to jump on the clouds, and when you get on that, you're going to jump on more clouds, and you're going up, and I'm not sure where it all ends when you're just going up. And that's it. And avoiding the baddies, some of which are obvious, like the flying things, some of which are not, like the plants that some kill you, some don't, but you'd never know which ones do and which ones don't.
Uh-huh.
So it has, I think, the most annoying jump sound of any game ever. So it's got... In fact, I'll even put a little... I'll record it, and I'll include it just after that, so you get a flavour of how annoying that is. So, and you've got that, so you've got to jump up with that sound, avoiding the things... You have to be greasily pixel perfect to land on things, because if you don't, you're going to get dropped to your death. It gets really annoying on the clouds, especially on the moving clouds, because when you jump on a moving cloud, you have to walk with it, which is one of my pet hates for platform games when you have to do that. Other than that, this game has nothing else to offer. The main Jack sprite, for want of a better description, if it's the beast, there is speech in it as well. So when you start, it shouts. I can't remember what it shouts now. It's that forgettable, but it's that kind of crackly speech, you know. So it's not like the "Hey, don't shoot me" kind of speech from the Epix games. It's kind of more of a kind of, it's got that phlegmy kind of crackling that means it's a really low quality sample, really low bit rate, like crazy bit rate. So 2-bit samples in it, awful. And when you die, I'm pretty sure it shouted F off, but you guys can play that and play it for yourself and see. But I'm pretty sure the giant, I'm assuming that the giant is at the top of this thing, shouts F off. It doesn't mention that in the Zap review, so I'm not sure whether that is what it says. Either way, this game is just rubbish. It's not enjoyable. It's strange enough, it does have that odd, annoying quality that these games have, which is you kind of want to just further up to see what's up there. But once you do get up there and you're in the clouds, and it's just more clouds and more clouds. And I don't know, maybe there's more to it than that after the top of that, because you've got to get to obviously the top of the bean chute. And I don't know what happens if you do. If I think of games where I'm climbing towers to get to places, there is only one game in that list that is anywhere near, that is brilliant, and there is nothing ever that came close to it. So, ever. So this game, just, you can't really compare those two anyway. But this game is just awful in every respect, and I felt that it was borrowed sprites as well, which makes it kind of worse.
Well, I thought that as well. What game are you talking about? What?
Nebulous.
Oh, Nebulous, yes. Okay, yeah.
Nebulous is, I think, one of the greatest climb the tower games of all time.
Yes,
still
absolutely.
Is to this day.
Just to say something, it says "Fee Fi Fo Fum" at the start, and when you die, it says "got you."
All right, it's not what it sounds like.
No,
that's 8-bit. It does, low quality samplage for you.
It does got you. I also thought as well, not just the Mario sprite, which looked particularly neat. When you die, does it not say "pow"? Which
it does, yeah.
Which is actually when you hit one of the turtles upside down, isn't it? In Mario Brothers.
I'm pretty sure the graphics are ripped off from the Mario Brothers game on the C64. In fact, I'm gonna look it up now, but I'm pretty sure.
I think they look very, very similar. This is garbage. It's just really bad sort of thing. It's too pixel perfect. It's a flick screen climb-a-thon with pixel perfect jumps, really slow, really boring. For £6, for £6, I would feel violated by this. This was really bad. We know when there's something, the game we're going to look at in a minute, which it's not my cup of tea, I will say. But I can imagine that people did like it, sort of thing. Something that we're going to look at in a couple of games' time. This is an appalling waste of everyone's time. It's just bad, and it does, like you said, that power is very familiar. The main sprite is very familiar. It just is bad to play. The controls are rubbish. The sound is bad. The visuals are crap. That speech is awful. Everything about this is this bad game. There are better platforming games around, and this is just. You're trying to sort of find some good in some of these things, and you're thinking, like you said, and I get what you're saying, that there is that. Let's try and see what's higher up. Let's try and meet this challenge. But when the challenge feels so pixely perfect, and you climb a bit and suddenly a plant kills you for no reason. Why does a plant kill you? You just put off. You put off. You don't want to continue with it, and so no. This is a big fat no in every respect from me. So don't play out on a limb. Do something better with your time instead. Quote, why don't you?
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure I can't find any evidence of it to support it. I'm not going to bother trying anymore. I'm just reasonably sure that those graphics are ripped off. Definitely the POW. Pretty sure the Mario, even if it's not fully ripped off, it's alarmingly similar enough to be what it is. So rubbish, just rubbish. And it should, even at $1.99, this would have been a push. So no, rubbish. Out on a limb, cut that limb off.
Yeah, awful. Okay, let's move on. Let's quickly move on to a second-class game. This is the Great American Cross Country Road Race, Tagakkur, as it was known to its fans at the time. Activision released this, if I remember rightly. Not to put too fine a point on it, this is Cannonball Run the game. Or there's more to it than that sort of thing. And it obviously there's no Sammy Davis Jr. in this sort of thing. There's no Dean Martin. There's no Burt Reynolds. There's no Dom DeLuise. What it is essentially an interesting take, a novel take on the driving game, having you racing from one side of America to another through various routes that you can pick, and you can choose your own route. Outrun styly, in this essentially thing. So you drive from San Francisco to Washington, or LA to New York, or back again, or Seattle to Miami, or whatever. And so you have a map of America with tracks that bisect cities as you go across. You select which one you want to head to, and off you go. You drive. I played a lot of this back then. This is one of the games that I seem to remember playing a lot of, and it's all right. It's an interesting take. The driving is not terrible. It's an interesting mechanic in the fact of for an American game, I'm surprised that it actually uses like a clutch mechanic, because the way this drives is you have gears which are not represented on screen that I could see, which was annoying to me because I couldn't quite figure out at first. So you hold down the fire button to bring all your revs up to full speed. Then you have to let go of the fire button and push up to change gear.
That's right.
Hold down the fire button again to speed up. So like a normal car going through the gears essentially. And so that's quite interesting. You have to make sure you don't run your engine at full revs, otherwise it blows. You have to stop to refuel on the trip to put extra fuel in the car. You have to not go too fast, otherwise police stop you. There's some novel elements to this that do lift it above your normal. It's not a racing game so much as, some kind of weird travel-a-thon thing. And it's okay. Movie. It's like I said, it's Cannonball Run in what it wants to be. And visually it's quite nice. The road is quite well designed, quite nice. The cars look okay. Everything moves at a decent clip. It's all right. I was, unlike, the horror show that was Richard Petty's Talladega the other week, where I had, my memories cruelly ripped apart. This was actually pretty decent. I quite enjoyed my time with this. Once I got used to the driving mechanic of how to drive properly, this was all right. I don't know, did you have any brief past history with this? Did you enjoy it? Did you not?
No, it was a game that I never really played before. Racing games were never great passion of mine. I don't mind Pit Stop 2 and those kind, but these kind of outrunny types. I liked Outrun the arcade. I think I was just more into the music of that than the actual game. But either way, this actually wasn't that bad. It had quite a nice, clever intro with the exhaust fumes sort of disappearing and leaving the title of the game, and that I quite like that. And it looked like it had a lot of stats in the game, so it looked like, you know, the race was going to take you some time. You have to really think about it, and I quite like that. You know, it's quite it was just an unusual take for a game of this type. So it wasn't just around the clock, round the track, who's going to get the fastest time. This was just a bit more to it than that, and it is essentially Cannonball Run / you know, that's based on the Gumball race, isn't it? Which is the famous cross-country American road race called the Gumball.
Yes.
So that's what that's loosely based on. They weren't allowed to call it Gumball, I think, because of probably copyright reasons, and it's actually an illegal race.
I think there's a film they called a Gumball Run.
Something like that, but it's actually an illegal race.
Yes,
so,
I know it is, yeah.
Anyway, so I thought this was quite good. Yeah, like you say, you just need to take a little bit of time to familiarise yourself with the controls, because it is a little bit different. Once you've got there, you know, it's a playable, enjoyable enough game. It's speedy, and that's what's the key to these games. You know, the graphics are quite nice. They're not huge, blocky, chunky sprites. They're quite neat sprites. You know, car sprites are good. The road moves at a pace. Backgrounds and things feel that they've got that kind of car movement to them. It's not, because some of the games of this type that we've played before, the tracks don't so much turn as kind of bend and contort, and it doesn't feel like you're driving on a road. It feels like it's just bending a lot. Whereas this doesn't do that. This has more of the Pit Stop 2 approach to the sort of feel of the road. It feels a bit more like, and I think that's because the car's, you know, scale wise about right, and so it feels like you're in more control of it. The sound effects are a bit annoying, but hey ho, no, it's a racing game. So I never played it at the time. I quite enjoyed replaying it at this game, and it, you know, it is what it is. It's a different take of the racing genre, but that's quite nice in itself. It's what it isn't. It's just another racing game, so that's quite good.
Yeah, it is offering something different. I will say that the engine noise is horrible.
Yeah, so I've got the sounds are really annoying in it, but
and that is one thing that does put you off after a while. But especially, you know, when you drive, you know, you're clicking through the gears and stuff. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that this still stood up to some degree, and you know that ability to choose your route, you go where you want, pick a different destination each time, what you thought would be the fastest from route to route, whichever way it was quite interesting. Yeah, this is all right.
And interestingly, it's probably better than Outrun when that came out in the Commodore 64 later, to be fair, because that was awful.
Yeah, I did put it has akin to Outrun sort of a sense, sort of thing, where you're picking your route.
Yeah, it does. You're right, it does. I think, if anything, it lends itself, you know, it's got that Outrun feel and tonality to it, you know, that kind of, you know, it's driving across the place. And like you say, nothing not to like about it, really, apart from the awful engine noise.
Awful engine noise, awful. Yeah, so Great American Cross Country Road Race. Catchy title. Could be shorter. Cannonball Run was much catchier.
Just Road Race would have been good.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Great American Road Race. You don't need the cross country part.
Not really, no.
It's a little bit over descriptive. We've gone a bit mad there, you know. It's like saying it's the Great American Cross Country, crossroads, difficult roads, sometimes bridges. You know, traffic could be quite heavy. Road Race.
Look out for penguins. Right, okay. So yeah, Great American Cross Country Road Race. Yeah, 77 in Zapped. Pretty much agree with that. I think that's about spot on. $9.99 though, maybe a bit.
No, it should have been cheaper.
There's a lot of game there, I think, though, for the time.
Yeah, you're going to be playing this for a while.
Yeah, you are doing all the different routes. All right, so our last game, a bit of a cult classic, I think. Start of a series that would have several games in this. This is the Magic Knight series, and this is Finders Keepers. A strange game. Strange series of games. I'm going to start straight away sort of thing and say this sort of thing, in that I was never a big fan of them. Again, people may be going, oh, God, what is wrong with you? But I never was. I could never really fully engage with these games. There was just something about them that just didn't connect with me. Probably more me. I can see that this is actually quite a decent game. There's a lot to this game, to this series of games. And let's not forget, let's state this at the start, this is £2. For £2, this is an absolute steal. You know, there's loads of stuff here sort of thing, but there was always just something about it. I think they got better as they went on. This is obviously the first one. One of the things that... So, okay, let's rewind a bit. But the Magic Knight series of games are, you could call them flick screen collectathons, platformy type stuff. They are that. But, you know, you're told at the very beginning, you're basically sent to uncover some treasure or something, and you got to bring it back to the king, or alternatively, just get out and go off your own way. So it's kind of a nice bit of open-endedness. I don't know if that's the case. I never finished it, so I don't know if that actually carries through. So the majority of the game is the, you know, side-on Manic Miner style screens where you're jumping up and down as Magic Knight, there's these little triangular objects that you can pick up, and then the dotted about the world there are these traders that you can go and you can trade objects with them, you can pick up, and all these kind of stuff. So there's a bit more depth to this already. Not only that, once you get past a certain point of the map sort of thing, you leave the sort of 2D platform and then go into this weird sort of angled sort of top down, not quite top down, but from an angle 3D maze type
maze
thing.
game,
So it becomes a maze game. So you're wandering around this maze, trying to find your way around and progress from there. I just never really knew what I was doing. And I think that's, like I said, this is probably just more me. I get that this is quite innovative and quite interesting. There's a lot of depth here. But I think one of the things that really puts me off about this series of games, or this one in particular, I can't remember if it does the rest, the visuals give me a headache, which it just starts to put me off playing it. There's several parts to the screen, and every part to the screen has this border where this sort of the lights going round and round and round and round and round constantly. It's like there's like a white circle and a slightly white, and it's like a chasing. So it's that kind of chasing the light round effect around every single screen. And at first you're thinking maybe for the menus, all right, that's fair enough. But when this is, around a play screen, around that, and then when you get to the maze screen, and the maze screen doesn't scroll particularly smoothly, it's a bit juddery. So you've got this juddery maze going up, down, left and right. You've got these circular lights going around it. It starts to give me a headache. It just visually starts to become quite noisy and just makes me want to turn the whole thing off and go away and lie down in a darkened room for 5 minutes with a damp cloth on my head. That's one of the things that I couldn't quite into with this. And I think I had that back then, and I had it right now again. So I'm not knocking the game. I think there's a lot here, and I think if you can get past that visual atrocityness, there's you'll probably get a lot from this. But it's not for me. I don't know what your take on it is, but that's mine.
Yeah, I agree, actually. So firstly, $1.99, that is really good value for this game. Number two, graphics are fun, music's jaunty and lively, but they're very over-colourful and they do burn their way into your retinas after some time. And I agree, there is not headache-inducing after a while. And you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at them, so I think that is a category one cock-up, really, to do that. First rule of making a game, don't blind the people who are trying to play it, really, or give them headaches. The puzzles were the usual kind of puzzles for this game. Pick stuff up, and I like the idea that you had to find this present to be welcome to the polygon table, wasn't it, as opposed to the round table?
Yeah, that's quite funny.
So you could, you had to get a present for his daughter, the princess, and then you were welcomed, or you could just leave, which I quite like. So you could just find your way out and escape. So you could do either of those things. It does have a nice feel to the game, and I think that's because you realise that you're getting a lot of game for your money, and the sequels are better, both graphically and orally, so they do get better. I'm not a fan of these massive multi-maps collect-em-ups generally, and Finders Keepers and the other 3 sequels to it never really came across my radar. Spellbound to some extent did, but the others didn't. I've never spent a lot of time playing them, and I started playing Finders Keepers when we do the replays for this podcast, and it actually does have quite a nice exploratory feel to it, but the trouble is there's so many games like that at this time, and I think what I've got is collect-em-up fatigue. So when I load them and I see that it's a game where I'm going to have to wander around a series of screens collecting things, I'm like, it just reminds me of Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy and all the other ones that we've played, of which there are many. And so to stand out in those kind of games, you've got to do something unique or different, and this doesn't really do that. As much as the gameplay is kind of just jump and avoid, and there's annoying parts of the jumping on this, so the jumping's weird, and it's got that awful, if you touch anything, the jump stops in its tracks, so you've got some navigating of terrain to do, and it's a bit unforgiving when you're landing on platforms, and if you accidentally double jump, and there's just silly stuff like that, which I guess over time you'd get better at. But there were games that I never got massively into anyway. So is it a good game? It's okay, but for $1.99 it's great. I think if you'd have expected people to pay $9.95 for this, you wouldn't have made any money about it, and you'd have been, this was their second biggest hit other than Kickstart for Mastrotronics. So it was a huge hit for them, and they had it on across all formats and platforms as well. So they did quite well with it. So you either like these collect-em-up games or you don't, I think. And I've said that before. I do and I don't. If they're good enough for me to enjoy, then I will persevere and get into it a bit. And this one, it was probably one that I would have persevered with, I think. Had I bought it originally for $1.99, I think I'd have stuck it out and tried to make it through and see how far I got. But I also know that I don't have a lot of patience for these things. So if a game starts to throw stupidity at me, like not being able to jump properly or not being able to get to platforms properly because the collision detection's so picky, then I can very quickly quickly switch them off and load up Green Beret, which is just stupidly simple. But that's the world of games you're up against. You're up against that. These as much as there's some benchmark games out there, right? Underlying all of that, this game was £2. Do you like these? Do you actually like the kind of collect 'em up games like this?
To be fair, sort of thing. I mean, we've got a gold.
We've played loads of these, right?
We've got a gold medal collect 'em up this issue.
Yes, true.
We've got Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Is essentially, like I said, it could easily been Every One's of Frankie. It could easily have been Finders Frankie Keepers. Frankie Goes to Hollywood is in of itself that. But the problem with these games, sort of thing, is this does away with it a little bit by giving you sort of health, and not instant death, so you're not kind of instantly penalised and stuff. And that's that's a touch in the right direction. My main issue with this sort of thing is the visual noise really puts me off. There was always just something in these games, and I think it was a relative boredom of I'm fed up of Manic Miner style jumping. I'm just really I remember back in 1985, 1986, I was just bored of that. By that point, sort of thing, even though this was £2, and I think I did have it, I think we had this for £2. It was just something that I think I played through for a chunk, but got put off by the visuals and then didn't want to go back. It's that again, isn't it? It's that jumping, it's that Manic Miner style game design, which so many games were just riffing on 2-3 years later. If you like those sort of things, this is a really good example of them, though. Yeah. There's probably more to this game than we're maybe giving credit to. I don't know. But the Magic Knight games were never for me. And maybe, we get to, was it Spellbound?
Spellbound to the next one, I think. Yeah.
And then what was after that?
Gosh, now you're asking. I can't remember. But
there's a few of these in the sort of thing. And they I don't know. They probably do get better. I don't know. We'll have a look at them when they turn up, sort of thing. But for this one,
Nighttime is the following.
Nighttime, that's it.
It's Jeepers Creepers. It's Finders Keepers, Spellbound, Nighttime, and Stormbringer.
Stormbringer, that's the one I was thinking of. There's one beginning there. So we'll have a look at these sort of things. But I don't think, I'm open to be converted to them, and hopefully they are. I know the others are a bit more engaging, better music and stuff like that. But I hated the music in this as well, by the way.
Yeah, it was jaunty, but it was alright. But the other three, by the way, they use like a menu system to talk to people and stuff. They're a bit more adventure-y in that respect. This one doesn't do that. It's the only one out of the 4 games that doesn't do that. What they called Windymation.
Yeah, I think this is a proof of concept. And like we said, £2. I'm not going to knock it too hard. I can see why Zapped gave it a sizzler, because I think it is trying to do quite a few things different, and that value for money proposition is hard to argue against. That's our games. That's this issue. That's our 18 games we've looked at. It's quite a lot. Quite a few.
Yes.
So, but they are, aren't they? It's just games, isn't it? It is what it is. They are what they are. So where are we with these games? So we've looked at, over these 2 issues, we've looked at Skyfox, Rupert and the Toymakers Party, Five-a-Side Football, Kennedy Approach, Summer Games 2, Monster Trivia, Mig Alley Ace, Hypersports, Kayak, Ian Botham's Test Cricket, Graham Gooch's Test Cricket, Rescue and Fractalus, Nick Faldo Plays the Open, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Merlin, Out on a Limb, Great America's Cross Country Road Race, and Finders Keepers. As ever, let's do our recommendations. We're going to pick the obvious.
Yeah, well, Summer Games 2 obviously has to be in the list, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
I think
definitely.
They've certainly stood the test of time, and they're certainly still great games to play. What else do you want to put in?
As an also ran, I'd be tempted to put in Hypersports.
So would I.
And Rescue and Fractalus would be in there as well.
Yeah, okay. I mean, from me, I would put Hypersports. I think over Rescue and Fractalus, I think I would put Kennedy Approach.
Okay.
I like Rescue and Fractalus. I think there's games do it better a bit sooner, sort of thing. I think I can see why it would go in. I think there's a lot to like in that. I think Kennedy Approach is just an unusual, example of something done well.
It is. It's just too niche for me. It's just it has such a narrow appeal. But I can see why you'd put it in there.
I can get that sort of thing, but I think any of those 5 games you're going to have a good time with. Mm-hmm. They will love you long time.
Yeah, and confined to the great pit of doom is Out on a Limb.
Yeah.
And the cricket games really can just go in. Well, actually, that's not fair
just Ian
Gooch. Botham's test match can go in the dustbin for me.
Ian Botham's. Yeah, that can go in.
And Mig Alley Ace can be confined to the never make a 2-player fight simulator like that ever again.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to argue with any of those, and I think they would be the 3 that I would put in. Yeah. I mean, I would be tempted to drop in Merlin as well, but...
Yeah, stick it in there.
So they'll go in the... I mean, that pot in... that Cauldron in Merlin has enough space for all of them.
It does. Chuck them all in there.
It was massive.
And then fire it out into space.
Indeed. So there we go. That's our recommendations and our God's sake, never play them games of the issue. So let's finish off with a last look at our final loads of Crapverts. I don't particularly like this advert. Nodes of Yesod. I don't know. There's something about this that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is. It's just, I think it's trying desperately to be like obtuse and a bit weird and stuff like that. And
2001.
Yeah, there's just something about it, sort of thing. And I don't like the crater mark on the planet. It just looks a bit like an anus to me. I don't know. There's just something about this advert which I just don't like. I don't like that prototypical. I know that's the main character from the game, sort of thing, but there's just something about it. I don't like the sort of gradient on the mountains in this foreground. I can't tell what's going on, sort of thing, because there's mountains here, but then there's a planet in the background, and it's all too close. And it just, I don't know, and I don't know what this plinth is. It's arty crap. Is what I'm looking for.
What you've got here is someone who cannot typeset to save their lives. So that Nodes of Yesod, it's the awful typeface choice. Why stick the copyright logo on it anyway? And then why have it so close to the edge of that mountain ranged shadow thing, which is, by the way, awful because it is just a gradient on a badly cut out mountainy thing with a weird planet with what looks like a giant cum stain on it.
and then you've got what looks like which you have done many a time.
Not for the first time, for now. And it looks like the astronaut there is going to be hit on the bottom by a giant wooden paddle.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing getting your bottom paddled is a theme in this game. So it doesn't shout. That game literally, other than the fact that it has a spaceman in it, that doesn't really tell you much about it, does it? And I guess that's the mystery of Nodes of Yesod.
Yeah.
But you know what? You need a bit. I think you need. It's still falling into that trap of, we don't need to explain what this game's about. We just have to give it an air of sci-fi mystery. And it's like you really do need to make it, because no one's going to buy that based on that rubbish. So
I don't like it. I don't like Odin.
I can't see what is reflected in his visor, but it's meant to be a reflection of a moon. It's all kinds of wrong. It's all kinds of wrong.
I don't like Odin's the typeface of their logo either.
Oh, the Odin Computer Graphics Limited logo is hilarious. It's just someone got hold of too many Photoshop plugins and tripped. And it's just all kinds of wrong. And they've underlined their own name, which is there's many crimes in this world, but using an underline on anything it's not good practice. That it's a bit like putting a bevel on an edge. It's just that is a literal Photoshop crime.
A bevel on an edge,
punishable by torturous death, second only to putting a pillow emboss on anything ever. And if you ever find yourself drifting towards the effects and the pillow emboss on Photoshop, remove your hands with swords. So just gonna say, there you
go.
Okay,
we don't like that. I don't like it anyway. I'm glad. There's something about it. It's the noise crap out of me. Anyway, Wizardry is our next one. Again, this it's not terrible, but that wizard, this doesn't sell anything to me.
No,
it's the most boring wizard simulator ever.
Yeah, and it's not selling it me that it's by the author of Quo Vadis. I'm like, all right, sounds mega serious.
For those in search of
that game is nothing like that.
For those in search of the next step in 3D graphic adventures, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it is good. Graphically, Wizardry is quite nice, but it does have that awful scrolling issue.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice. But what I always like, I mean, irrespective of what crazy... For some reason, why not just make the picture of the wizard bigger anyway? Why that little...
That's what I mean.
Anyway,
I don't get it.
They seem to do that a lot with these. They seem to shrink images down. But I still like the Edge logo to this day.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice logo. But it does feature a beveled stroke on there with a gradient in it, and it is making me starting to twitch a little bit. But I'll let them go, because the way that they've formulated the Edge word with the way that the D rolls into the G is really lovely. I love that. So.
It is very nice, don't get me wrong. I just wanted to sort of talk about this picture of the wizard sort of thing, because we've mentioned this. It looks like the most, it's the jolliest, simplest wizard. He's got a book open and a potion in his hand. There's a loaf of bread on his table in front of him. There's some curtains.
Is that a loaf of bread?
I think it looks like a loaf of bread to me. There's a book and some pots and, some more potion vial type things. This is what kind of game is this? What is this?
I don't know. And who's Stephen Chapman, and what's it got to do with Quo Vadis? He looks happy, that wizard, though, doesn't he? He looks like a traditional wizard. He's got a pointy hat and stars on it. That says wizard.
He's got an electric light.
There is a bulb there, isn't there?
There's a bulb. What's going on?
There is a light bulb. Maybe he's just had a really bright idea.
Maybe that's the wizardry. He's made electricity.
He has, and
in fact, he's got two bulbs. There's one just above his head and one to the top right as well.
Is he drinking from that thing in his hand? Do you think so? Is that a drink he's having, or is he? Because is he meant to be concocting a potion? I'm casting a spell. What's he doing?
Maybe this is just somebody who thinks they're a wizard who's had a bit of a drink.
And I don't mean to call the health and safety police, but sleeves that long, if you're using dangerous chemicals, you're heading for a serious chemical burn or an injury. Just either tuck those sleeves in with some clips, or to wear the proper outfits for scientific experimentation. Don't be wielding books and vials of liquid. And also, if you've not seen Breaking Bad, this can end badly for you.
And also, what's he seen that's giving him that expression?
I think it's more likely something under that table. So.
Someone's got hold of his wizard staff.
Well, there's a reason all the objects are going towards the back of the table. There's something under there, bumping around in there. And his bed's really tiny.
Or he's looking
his bed is as thin, as wide as a shelf. Which means he must sleep on his side.
Or he's looking at Ye Olde Penthouse.
Yes, it's true.
That's the magazine he's looking at. He's slipped
and he's not doing so well, is he, for a wizard? He's in a tiny one bedroom little flat there with a.
He's got electric lights.
Well, he's got electric lights, but he's got a. That's got to be a sofa bed. Essentially, that is a what do you call it?
Studio flat.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's even smaller than that, and it's one of those. His lounge is his kitchen, is his bedroom, is his everything. To
quote the 80s, it's compact and bijou.
Compact and bijou, yeah, and he's got a giant pot to piss in, so he's.
Oh, there you go.
That's good. That's good. But his main central flask is got horribly bent and misshapen. So
and he's got a loaf of bread.
It is.
That is a loaf of bread.
That book. Only thing, that book in his hand compared to the book on the desk, that book is massive.
It is massive.
That book is as big as a desk. So so he's clearly easy to retype with no big words for that wizard.
Anyway, let's look at the
wizard
next
takedown.
So from Strange Wizards.
God.
So this game is, I've never heard of this game. It's a Spectrum game, so I do apologise for this, but I had to include this. This is, I did say coming soon to Amstrad and CBM 64 versions, really badly just overlaid across this. So this is Metabolus. So
yeah.
This looks like this is a really, really shocked Birdman flying over some kind of sort of fantasy land with some bats in the background, or maybe because they're not versions of him because they ain't got legs. So this is a man with a bird's head and wings, flying over
the description underneath it all is brilliant.
Stretch your wings.
It's just brilliant.
Steel your nerves. ... You're the last hope for mankind.
But you're underneath.
But you're a bird man.
A bit underneath. Before your eyes, your friends, your family are rendered helpless, transformed to lesser beings, birds and mice, by the invading Kremlins.
Kremlins?
But by a cruel twist of fate, the transformation leaves you the body of a bird, but the brain of a human. But he's got the body of a human in that picture and a head of a bird. You are the last chance the human race has left. Why would it's not a cruel twist of fate? It's bad enough that your friends and family have been transformed into birds and mice, let alone you've been transformed.
The only thing left that's part of human is the brain. So why has he got the body of a human and only the head of a bird?
He's got man legs with seagull feet.
Yep.
That is a superhero waiting to.
What's his name though? And what's Metabolus got to do with anything?
And why the Kremlins? The Kremlins.
I love that. I love the idea that it's put down to a cruel twist of fate. Never mind that everyone's been transformed into they're just lesser beings, but birds and mice. By a cruel twist of fate, he's still got the brain of a human, but he hasn't. It's more than that. He's got a man cock. He's wearing underpants. Yeah, birds don't wear underpants.
He's got a wicked belt.
Yes, he's got a belt and pants on. So when he was transformed, that man was wearing that outfit, and they just put bird wings and a bird head and a tail and feet on him. So he was, for reasons that aren't explained in that advert, he was dressed like that.
He was.
So maybe that's the way that they dress on that crazy planet of whatever the hell it was.
I don't know.
But and see, is that a giant boomerang? What is that? Is that what he fires? Does he throw boomerangs or something?
I can't tell whether that's something coming off.
Is that his TV antenna for his? Because he don't get very good Channel 5 reception on that castle he's in. So
I don't know. I don't know if it's something coming off the castle or something. Maybe it's the force of his caw.
Yeah, his caw emits a shriek.
Caw.
Or he just can't get very good Freeview reception in his castle tower, and that's
because
he's got he's chased by bats. But bats with elongated extra bat bits of wings, so they're not quite bats.
And just think, right, as well, I mean, if you were going to place the text coming soon at Amstrad and CBM 64 version, why would you put it like that there? Really hard to read.
Yes.
Black against
the 64
black.
right over his bulge. It's right over his bulge. You're drawing attention to that bulge immediately, aren't you? And it's unpleasant, really.
Bird bulge.
Yeah, and... why Metabolus as well?
I don't know.
I'm guessing he's metabolized into some. Is this kind of a manimal thing? Is there's a hint of manimal about it? Because he transferred into a bird, did he? In Manimal.
Do we have to talk about Manimal?
Well, I'm just thinking they must, they got the idea from somewhere for this crazy nonsense.
Oh God!
And it's not just any old bird. That's a seagull. The scavenger of all birds. He's not going to help them out. He's just going to go around nicking chips off people at the seaside, and just being generally annoying.
Hey, could you imagine those sort of things? That if seagulls look like that, that'd be genuinely terrifying.
I'll tell you what though, that would make a great game if it was that, but it was just steal the chips. So it was Whitby, Whitby Terror. That was the name of the game, and it featured the same character in the sequel. He just, he's decided once and for all, he's not going to bother with the people who've already been turned into birds and lesser beings. He's just going to steal chips off people at the seaside. The bastard.
The other thing as well is that obviously he's got no hands, but he's still got pants on. That's maybe why he looks quite so shocked. He needs the loo.
Well, he's going to have trouble getting...
He needs to go to the toilet.
Well, by rights, he must still have an anus then, which... It's look at that tail of his, it's going to get horribly messy, and them feathers might be soft for a while, but after a while, that's going to get crud, and you're not going to get that off.
No.
That beautiful blue plumage is going to end up all brown and matted.
When somebody commissioned this, they went, look, the game's about, like, this guy's got the brain of a bird, brain of a human in the body of a bird, and he's like, the last thing he's been transformed. The guys, all they've heard is like human bird. They've gone off and they've drawn this and they've brought it back and they're like, what's this? What is this? And it's like, well, you said human bird.
Well, he's got it the other way around, hasn't he? Because he's actually drawn it's not a body of a human it's the body of a human and a brain of a bird, not the brain of a human and the body of a bird.
He's heard human bird. That's all he's heard. Yeah. So in this, like, in his mind,
that's what a human bird is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a bit like your classic drawing of a merman is the guy at the top and a fishtail, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that could be the other way around. It could just be a fish-headed guy with like cock and balls and legs.
Cod roe.
And that'd be horrific. So it's all down to interpretation. But those freaks must exist, and somewhere there is the opposite of him, which is a man's head on a bird's body with a. It doesn't bear thinking about.
No, it doesn't. Anyway,
and he would be practically useless as well. He wouldn't be able to fly, would he? Just have man arms.
It's Gab. It's just I hope actually that hits Zapped because I want to see what the hell this game is.
I think you should get that made into a giant poster and put on your wall for all to see.
Let me just move my camera around. There you go.
Wow, you've got one. Wow.
No, I've got a real man bird. He's over there.
I've made one. Oh my God, you have.
Oh dear.
We didn't think it was possible.
Stretch your wings, steal your nerves.
Yeah, and prepare yourself for the attack of the seagull man.
They couldn't even fit the proper extra dot in. They've done 2 dots. No one does 2 dots. It's 1 or 3.
Nobody does 2. And is that Steven Seagal in that? Hey.
Jesus Christ. On that note, let's move on to our charts.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. So our top 10, Commodore, Computer and Video Games magazine, September 85, had these in these as the top 10 games. I don't think there's much change from last week, actually. We've got Impossible Mission in at number 10. Number 11 is Graham Gooch Test Cricket.
Well, that's the best cricket game out of the shit ones.
It is, true. But number 12 is View to a Kill.
That's above Shadowfire. There's something very wrong in the world.
I know. Number 9, Kickstart. Number 8, Action Biker. Clumsy Collins, Action Biker. Action Biker starring Clumsy Colin. Who knows? Dam Busters at number 7, International Basketball at number 6, International Tennis at number 5, Pit Stop 2 at 4, Soft Aid still there at number 3, Elite at number 2.
God, will Elite ever leave the chart? Get out.
Never. But at number 1, and deservedly so, and should have been a gold medal, Way of the Exploding Fist.
Yes.
Any other notable games in this top 20? Oh my God.
Finders Keepers is in there at number 14.
Ian Botham's Test Cricket is 23.
Sheesh, that shouldn't be in there at all.
Talladega is 28.
Yeah.
Christ on a bike.
How is Rocky Horror Show higher than Drop Zone? We may never know.
No.
We may never know. And there's a few noticeable exceptions that they'll probably be in there next month, won't they? Hypersports will be in there, and
Summer Games 2.
Summer Games 2, I would have thought will be in there.
Yeah. They'll be coming soon.
I hope so, because at the moment, sports representation in that top 20 is shocking and not nice. So
International Tennis and Basketball are in there.
Yeah, no, say most of it's. You've got Daley Thompson's just hanging around in there. Yeah. World Series baseball still stinking around, stinking up the place.
Hey,
Graham Gooch's cricket is all
get
right.
Get out of here with your stink.
And why is Dambuster still there? Get out.
British. English, isn't it?
Make way for Skyfox. Get Skyfox in there. Get that out.
Yeah, true. All right, so there we go. That's September 1985. Those were the games. There was some excellent stuff in there, and obviously a couple of real bad crap. What we got next issue? We've got, strange enough, doesn't look like there's any gold medal for next issue, so there's no outright sort of stunner by the looks of it. We've got Baron Wigan's World Championship Boxing, which I remember being quite good. I remember enjoying that. Reviewed Beachhead for some reason, but I don't think we'll have a look at that. We've done that. Monty on the Run. We've gone from Thing on a Spring. We've gone through Hypersports. And now we've got Monty on the Run. The Sid chip is stretching itself. The awful advert, notes of yes odds in there. We've got a couple of construction set, pinball and racing construction set. Finally, what else we got to look forward to? Spy vs. Spy 2. I think it was the Island.
And Speed King's in there. That's the Mastertronic motorbike racing game. I must have spent quite a lot of my life on that.
And also a game called Shoot 'em Up, which probably doesn't leave a lot to the imagination.
I bet it isn't a Shoot 'em Up. I bet the irony is they're trying to play the irony card. And Vortron.
Probably.
That sounds awful already.
We will be looking at it, though. I'm going to make sure we are. Because I don't like you. No, I do. I just like making you play bad games.
Is there no gold medals in that list?
No,
That's interesting.
There's also a conversion of Mr. Do as well. There's also something called Mad Doctor. Oh, Mad Doctor. I remember Mad Doctor. That was bad.
Well, we're going to discover these wonders. Mr. Do's a great arcade, so also I'd be very interested to see what that's like.
And following up from Graham's Gooch, we've got Dickie's Diamonds.
Oh, God. I hope that might be Dickie Davis's game.
Oh, it might be.
We have to sell used cars for some reason.
We can but hope. On that note, thinking about Dickie's Diamonds, we will end it there. Thank you very much for your time. We have been Zapped to the Past. I've been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Raddings.
And we'll be back in a week or so's time with, what is it? What follows September? October. God.
Usually October.
October 1985. We'll see you then. Good night and goodbye.
Ta-ta. Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, sights, sounds and news from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zapped 64 magazine, published at the time. We will be back next week with another podcast, so do please join us. Until then, please head over to zappedtothepast.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. You will also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram under Zapped to the Past. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zapped 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe and see you next time.